We're answering questions from the Twitter sphere, extension candidates, trade targets, Twins, all things Twins on today's episode of Lockdown Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Minnesota Twins podcast. It's Sunday, November 13th, and I'm your gracious host, Nash Walker. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thanks again for listening. Nash Walker, 4 seasons, writing at twinsdaily.com, 3 seasons, hosting a daily podcast. What a win for our Vikings today. How about that? What a game, what a win. Justin Jefferson is incredible. I'm back to answer some questions from Twitter, from the Twitter sphere. Really interesting. Thank you so much, as always, for sending questions. You can always send me questions if you want me to talk about things on the show. Send me topics, questions, and we have time this offseason, and we can get to those. So Josiah always brings the questions, and we appreciate you, Josiah. We got a group today of great inquiries from Twins territory, and maybe outside of Twins territory as well. We're not limiting. Maybe some Sox fans in here. Yuck, but that's fine. That's fine. Josiah, will you be doing quick reactions with Brandon Warren this offseason after moves? We don't have anything planned. So Brandon and I did the postcast throughout the season after most Twins games. We don't have anything planned, but I like that idea. And I like the idea of having regular guests on the show this offseason. I think that's something we're going to do. I think we're going to have, Nick Nelson and Ted Schwerzler and Brandon and hopefully a bunch of other people come on and share their offseason blueprints before we really get going. That's kind of something I've been thinking about recently, to have like a bunch of Twins bloggers and writers on to share what their ideal offseason would be. So we're going to get creative. I don't have anything planned with Brandon after moves, but I'm sure we'll get varied opinions after moves on the show. So don't worry about that if you're looking for someone else than just my voice this offseason on Locked On Twins. Josiah also asks, would you bring in James Click or David Stearns? James Click just divorced the Astros, their GM. I think he was GM, maybe Pobo, but he's gone from Houston. They just won the World Series. And then David Stearns stepping down in Milwaukee, 2 of the higher regarded execs in baseball. It's interesting timing for the Twins. If the Twins were coming off like their 3rd or 4th consecutive losing season, I would say, okay, it's time for this front office to move on. Like, honestly, if they have a down 2023, I think we're going to be having that conversation next year. That's 3 straight losing seasons, and it doesn't feel like we're going in the right direction at that point. So I would say Click Stearns absolutely in play for the Twins. But right now, they're just not in that position to move on from this front office just yet. And they know, I think, that this is a big offseason. And I think because the Twins uprooted so much after the Terry Ryan regime, just like cleaning house basically, I don't know if there's a desire to go through that again right now. Maybe there will be after another losing season. There's pressure from ownership reportedly that the Twins need to win. So we'll see what happens after this year. But I don't think Stearns or Click will be out of a job at this time next year. Maybe we're talking about it then. But for right now, it's just not a realistic possibility. Although I obviously hold those two in high regards as well, with Stearns in the pitching pipeline in Milwaukee, James Click with the success in Houston. Clearly, they would be targets if the Twins were in that market, but I don't think they're in that market right now. Sean, realistic trade targets brings up Pablo Lopez from Miami. I'm bringing up Woodruff and Burns, and Sean mentioned Woodruff as well in the question. And Josiah also asks, trading Jorge Polanco and Matt Wallner for Pablo Lopez. So Pablo Lopez has come up a lot, and we went over Pablo at the trade deadline and a little bit last offseason because he had 3 years of team control remaining. Now he has 2. Things changed for him a little bit in 2022. He threw 180 innings, so he had like his healthiest season in a long time, but his ERA was high. He was closer to league average than he was well above league average. Pablo's not somebody I would personally like break the bank for, although he's somebody absolutely the Twins would target. Like, he's their type. He's right-handed. He doesn't throw super hard, has a great changeup. He's kind of like the Malley, Paddock even a little bit of Sonny Gray mold, but more Malley and Paddock, 2 years of team control, just like Tyler Malley, or just like, yeah, Tyler Malley had a year and a half, but we were discussing that possibility when he had 2 full years of team control. I like Pablo Lopez. He's like a good number 2, number 3 starter. I don't think he's a number 1, and I honestly don't think there's a bunch of upside for him to be a number 1 because he just doesn't have the velocity. And he's good. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's well above average through 180 innings last year. He would help the Twins and he would be one of their 3 best starters. He's probably at this point, I don't know if he's better than Sonny Gray, but if you looked at the last like 3 years body of work, he would be. You'd probably put him right there with Gray and Malley. I like Pablo Lopez. Would I trade Jorge Polanco and Matt Wallner for him? Maybe. I need to know what the other moves are. I would do that if I knew that I was going to invest money at short, or I was going to invest money, big time money in the outfield, or get another starter, like invest big time money on the starting pitching market. I would want to know what the other moves are. That wouldn't be the first move I would make of an offseason. If I was able to get Correa and I was able to bring in Mitch Haniger and I was able to bring in, I don't know, Jameson Tyone, then maybe I'm going to go take that extra step and trade Polanco and Wallner for Lopez. Because if you get Correa, that's more glut in the infield and you can move people around. And I think for Polanco, he is a trade candidate this offseason just because there is a logjam at first and third base, and Luis Ariz has to play somewhere. Miranda has to play somewhere. Kirilloff's going to have to play somewhere, probably in the outfield. Polanco could be the one who is moved from that glut, and this is the type of deal, Polanco and Wallner for Pablo Lopez, we could potentially see. But right now, if that was the first move, I would say no. I would need to know more of what they were going to do this offseason before I'd pull the trigger on trading one of their best players in Jorge Polanco for Pablo Lopez, along with Matt Wallner, who I think is going to be pretty good as well. But yeah, Sean, I mean, Pablo Lopez, Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, those are the top 3, I think, on the starting pitching market. There will be surprises, maybe Zach Gallen, maybe Sandy Alcantara. There's some rumblings that he could honestly be available. Do I expect the Twins to be involved if those guys are available? No, because they don't have the farm system, and teams like the Dodgers do, and they'd be first in line for those starters. And that's the case for Lopez, Woodruff, and Burns. But I think for Lopez more specifically, because he's not like an ace. He's not Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff or Zach Gallen. He might be more attainable for the Twins. I wouldn't do that particular move right now. More trade targets to watch. Upside with Josh Winder, free agent reclamation projects, so much to get to. Chance of signing an outfielder this offseason, so much to get to after this word from Bet Online. Football, man, what a game. Minnesota Vikings. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. It's not just football. Hockey's back. College hoops are back. The NBA. So much to go play and so much to go do at BetOnline. Not just play. Podcasts, you can find those. Fastest and easiest way to get any fix you need for sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. Outfield, someone to watch, a trade target to watch is Teoscar Hernandez in Toronto. Teoscar has 1 year of team control left at a pretty high arbitration salary, 11, 12 million, I believe, is his projection in arbitration. I'll check up on that to make sure. But he's somebody to watch because he's right-handed, and I think the Blue Jays will be motivated to get a left-handed bat in their lineup. They're really right-handed. Their payroll's already at 175 million. Teoscar's actually set to make 14.1 million in his final year before free agency, and I don't think they're going to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez. I could be wrong, but they have money tied up in George Springer. They're going to have to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They have Jose Barrios, big money on the books. Matt Chapman's going to be a free agent after this year. They might want to secure him at third base. There's a lot going on here, and I don't think it's going to be Teoscar they extend. He's 30 years old. He's coming off another good year. He's a wonderful right-handed hitter against lefties. He's decent in his career against righties. He was an all-star in 2021, but I think fits the Twins mold beautifully. He was a 3-win player this year, played 131 games. He hit 267 OPS plus at 127. And if you'll remember, my number 2 need for the Twins was a big bat and preferably right-handed, Teoscar would fit that bill. And this leads into the question from Greg. Chances of signing a left fielder for Kirilloff insurance. Why not trade for Teoscar Hernandez for outfield and left field insurance for Alex Kirilloff? And in return, the Twins and Blue Jays, I think, match up wonderfully on a deal. The Twins have left-handed corner bats they can deal. Max Kepler, Trevor Larnach, Alex Kirilloff, bunch of left-handed bats. Matt Wallner, if they wanted to trade Wallner in a deal with Toronto, they match up really nicely here. And I think Teoscar is a guy to watch because the Twins can take on that salary. They can take on $14 million in salary. And we've seen this regime really love to go get guys who only have 1 year of team control or 2 years of team control because it's less risk and the deal is going to be less profitable for Toronto because he only has 1 year of control and it's at a pretty premium salary. Not premium for if Teoscar was a free agent, but for an arbitration player, $14 million is somewhat premium. I really like Teoscar Hernandez. He's someone to watch. Keep an eye on him this offseason for the Twins specifically. I think that would be great. John asks, what's the upside with Josh Winder? And is that going to be unlocked as a starter or a reliever? Here's what we know, John. Josh is a great slider, right? His slider metrics and everything about his slider is borderline elite. It's Griffin Jack's territory from a year ago in 2021 when he was starting. The problem is, like Griffin Jack's, his fastball gets destroyed and he can't get through a lineup multiple times. The fastball velo's fluctuated, I think partly because of the shoulder injury. I'm hopeful that Josh Winder can still remain a starter, but I think if you put him on the Griffin Jack's trajectory, there's no question that he's going to find that upside as a reliever because he does have an elite slider. And I would guess and bet that his velocity is going to stick more as a reliever like Griffin Jack's. Griffin Jack's added 3 miles an hour on every single pitch as he moved to the bullpen. Like Winder's already 93, 94. You can tee him up for 97 out of the bullpen with his fastball. But a lot of guys start 97. You want to try to have enough starters. You want to make sure you're producing starters, and Winder is maybe their best pitching prospect a year ago. So it's important that they don't just move everybody to the bullpen. Not everybody, but Winder's on the border. Like if he has another tough year starting, he's going to be in his late 20s. I think you're going to see a bullpen move or like the swingman role or a long relief role, maybe just not as a traditional starter if his fastball continues to get destroyed. It's not tenable as a starter to have your fastball getting hit for, 400 WOBA or whatever it was. It was ridiculous in 2022. I think there's upside with him, John. I think it's as a reliever. We'll see. Maybe he surprises everybody, stays healthy, and his fastball doesn't get destroyed in 2022. We'll see. But in 2023, he does have an elite slider from Josh Winder. CJ2K is wondering, is Pete Mackey the long-term pitching coach, and is Tommy Watkins going to be at third base? Apparently the players and the pitchers really like Pete Mackey, and they told Derek Falvey in the front office that they would prefer Mackey to stay in that role or something along those lines. So at least for right now, Mackey is the long-term solution at pitching coach. But I would say everybody's kind of on the seat, not the hot seat, but on a warm seat for 2023, that this needs to go well in a lot of different areas. They're not going to be afraid to make changes. That's an ownership. That's via the front office. Things need to go better in 2023, especially in the second half. So it is Mackey right now. CJ and Tommy Watkins, it sounds like, will remain as the third base coach. I love Tommy. Some better calls need to be made in 2023, but that's a tough job. And nobody likes their third base coach. No fan likes their team's third base coach. I've never heard a fan say that they think their third base coach is good at his job. So we'll see with Tommy. I love him. I love like the energy he brings and like he's beloved in the organization. We'll see about him at third base in 2023. I don't know. It's got to get better. Matthew, pre-arb long-term deals. I love this question. Pre-arb means before players get to that arbitration process. We always say 6 years. You have 6 years from when your service time clock starts. 3 of those years in the majors are pre-arbitration. That's a salary of about $750,000. And then you go into 3 years of arbitration before you go to free agency, and you get those built-in raises in arbitration. So Matthew's asking, guys who are in pre-arb, they have not yet reached arbitration. That would be prospects. Jose Miranda's in pre-arb. Jose Miranda is part of this list. I would say their clear extension candidate to me is Yohan Duran, and he has 5 years left of team control. I would buy out those 5 years at $20 million guaranteed with 2 $10 million club options. You know who signed that deal? Emmanuel Clase. I would replicate the Emmanuel Clase extension and give it to Yohan Duran. That's 5 years, $20 million with two $10 million club options. I think the buyout is $2 million on those club options, which to me, that would be a no-brainer for Yohan Duran. There's some risk, but that would be a no-brainer. You're buying out 2 years of free agency with club options. Jose Miranda, 6 years, $38 million. You're buying out all of his pre-arb and arbitration for 38 guaranteed, and then 2 club options on top of that. That would be a deal I'd be interested in. The reason this is so below market is because these guys are going to be making $750,000 for the next 3 years, and even if they have wonderful seasons, the most they can make, someone like Jose Miranda can probably make in arbitration is 5, 8, and 12 million. Luis Ariz is going to make 5 million this year, and he just won the batting title. Like, arbitration is just not made to pay players a lot of money, and that's by design. That's by design in the CBT. So Miranda, 6 years, 38 million. Joe Ryan, I would go 7 years, 60 million, couple of club options. That one to me is more risky, and I don't think the Twins would ever do that. But I wouldn't mind like a 7-year extension for Joe Ryan that would buy out 2 free agent years, and you have 2 club options on top of it. And then the last one would be like a high risk, high reward, and not even high risk, is 50 million guaranteed to Royce Lewis over 6 years with a couple of club options. So you're just buying out all those pre-arb years in the arbitration to get a couple of years that they would have been free agents, 2 years on Lewis and 2 years on all these guys for club options. Those numbers are small, the guaranteed numbers, but guys want to get their money. Like, that's guaranteed money. And you saw like Ronald Acuna Jr. signed a below market deal. Guys do it all the time. Royce Lewis is represented by Scott Boras, so I don't know if he would do that, but maybe he's thinking like, I've had back-to-back ACL surgeries. Let me get my $50 million on this extension and be set for life. It's something to consider. Like, I think about it for myself. I would love to get 50 million guaranteed, but there's also that I'm betting on myself angle of it too. Like, I believe in myself. I believe in my knees. I think I'm going to be a star level player, which he should believe that, Royce Lewis. Same goes for Ryan and Miranda and Yohan Duran. Those would be my 4, Matthew, that I'm looking at. Kirillov's just too risky to me right now with the wrist. But Lewis, Ryan, Miranda, Duran, I would love to see extensions for at least a handful of them this offseason and into spring training. Adam, free agent reclamation projects from Adam. Well, I would say the number one guy this offseason who I think fits the Twins bill. He has a history with Derek Falvey in Cleveland, is Mike Clevinger. And Twins fans have seen Mike Clevinger as a frontline starter. That was when he was in Cleveland. He hasn't been that guy. 2 Tommy John surgeries. Didn't have a very good second half with San Diego. The velocity came back down after it looked good. He looked fine, and then he just ran out of gas at the end of the year. But Mike Clevinger is such a clear Reclamation Twins type of target to me. Somebody they see more upside in on a 1-year deal. I think he's going to be looking for a 1-year deal to reestablish his value. And we're talking about someone who was a frontline starter in Cleveland. They traded him to San Diego. San Diego didn't get much out of Mike Clevinger. Like, they barely got anything. I think the second half of the COVID season, and then he had Tommy John, missed, I think, all of 2021, and then came back and was one of the worst starters in the second half in 2022. Clevinger's a clear reclamation project for the Twins. I could see it. Like, I almost believe that it's already happened, that they signed Mike Clevinger, which I would be okay with that, because he fits in well in that you're not going to expect a lot of innings from him, and he could be a 6th man, like a six starter for you. But I hope that they shoot higher, as their main pitching target this offseason. But Clevinger, can you stomach Dallas Keuchel? I couldn't, but he's a reclamation project. When I think of reclamation, I think of guys who were once good or who once had promise, and you're hoping to reclaim that promise. That's how I think of it. So Mike Clevinger, Dallas Keuchel, someone I actually liked before he just signed with Colorado. He just re-upped and went back to Colorado, was Jose Urena. Electric stuff, sinker 96, 97, electric stuff, terrible numbers, but somebody just like a minor league deal, and you could see what he has in St. Paul and maybe make some tweaks. He's a reliever or something, but he re-signed with Colorado, so that's a moot point. In the outfield, obviously Joey Gallo is a reclamation project for any team. Probably 1 year, 7-8 million to see if he can get back to being the 4, 5, 6 win player he showed signs of being and was in Texas. Joey Gallo. Kevin Kiermaier is really interesting to me as a reclamation project. He was never a great player, but he's a great defender, and he's left-handed, which he could be Buxton insurance, but he's a lot like Buxton in that he's often injured. But that's amazing Buxton insurance as an elite center fielder out there, but he's often hurt, like Byron, similar player, not nearly the bat and the power, but he's left-handed. And he could be a decent backup for Byron in center field. Could even start in a corner against a righty if you wanted to get elite defense out of a corner from Kevin Kiermaier. But he's a reclamation project in the outfield. Adam mentioned Michael Conforto. Clearly, yeah. I think he's going to get paid too much this offseason, to be honest with you. But yes, I mean, he would be a reclamation project for the Twins I could see as well. But I think because they have more glut in the outfield, in the corners with Larnach and Kepler and Wallner and Kirilloff and all those guys, I don't think they'll spend up necessarily on one of those guys unless they trade for a right-handed bat like Teoscar Hernandez. But left-handed corner bat, I just don't see them spending a premium. If they were to, I'd want them to sign Michael Brantley, who's a free agent. He missed basically all of 2022, but you've seen what he can do. Twins fans know Michael Brantley as well. What an addition he would be if he was healthy and could get back to the Twins lineup. I don't know how much outfield he can play. He's probably mostly a DH, at least to start 2023. If he gave you even 75% of the bat he had, the bat to ball skills, the consistently hitting 300 with an on base percentage at 375, it'd basically be like adding another Luis Arraez to your lineup in Michael Brantley. So I'd be all over that on a reclamation deal, as you would say. Relief, bunch of them. Trevor May, Adam mentioned, another good point. Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman's a free agent, and the Yankees basically cut him, got rid of him, and he didn't make the playoff roster. Aroldis Chapman. Tommy Kahnle is really interesting to me. Pitched for the Dodgers, barely pitched because he's had a bunch of injury problems, but when he pitches, he is nasty. Upper 90s, great changeup. I like Tommy Kahnle a lot. Ken Giles is the same. Ton of injuries, but when he's on the mound, he's one of the best relievers in baseball. Super electric arm, but just can't stay healthy. Zach Britton, same thing. Zach Britton, when he's healthy and when he, in his career, one of the best relievers in baseball, has trouble staying healthy. And then Evan Marshall is an under-the-radar target as a free agent. He was great for the White Sox in the COVID season in 2020. He's also dealt with a bunch of injuries, wasn't very good. He's a reclamation project as well. I would bet you the Twins will sign one of these guys: Clevenger, Keuchel, Gallo, Kiermaier, Conforto, Brantley, May, Chapman, Kahnle, Giles, Britton, and Marshall, because they love that. They love going after those reclamation projects. We'll finish with Bats and Leather asking, when is the next playoff win going to be? 2023. We're going to manifest that for 2023. That'll be the next playoff win. Bats and Leather actually asked if it's going to be in the next decade, and I'm going to say 2023. We'll just say it. We'll say it's going to happen. And then Josiah will finish with this. Well, I guess we already did Polanco and Wallner. So we covered them. We covered all the bases. Thank you so much for your questions, as always. If I missed your questions, I apologize. Actually, we will finish. We have one more. I forgot. Blake asked, what are the chances that the Twins re-sign Carlos Correa in my mind, like the percent? I'm going to put it at 13% that the Twins re-sign Carlos Correa. That's my official prediction. 13% for the Twins to re-sign Carlos. Thank you so much again. Appreciate your questions so much. As always, if you have questions, send them to me. We'll do more of these. And as I said, we're going to have guests on. We're going to have people on. We're going to have Twins analysts on to break down this offseason as we get underway. Thanks so much for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. And as always, go Twins.